10 minutes before 7 here on Morning Live, President Jacob Zuma's removal of Finance Minister Nhlahla Nene last week seemed to have struck a raw nerve. This sparked an unexpected reaction from the falling of the rand to about over 16 rand to the dollar, to some calling for the president to resign. The rand has since recovered almost 80 cents to the US dollar, and this followed last night's announcement that former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan is now in his old post. Some say the country is disintegrating, while others believe South Africa is a country full of hope and good prospects. Wonder which one our analyst in Pretoria, our political analyst and good friend Somadoda Fikeni believes. Somadoda, it's so good to have you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers, Leanne.
So I say in the introduction, some South Africans believe that we're disintegrating and others think this is just a lovely sign of democracy. Well, what do you believe?
Well, I do think that South African democracy, in essence, is still a strong one, vibrant. Civil society is able to make the leaders to account. But at the same time, I do think that some of the decisions that have been made are so bizarre that the international community, the South African community, may begin not to take seriously our leaders, precisely because it calls into question the processes that goes into decision making and the judgments thereof, as well as a knee-jerk reaction wherein you may find yourself with decisions in a reaction which may also not be carefully thought out.
What do you think happened? Obviously, and let's not focus on the obvious. I mean, last week we focused extensively on what was going on the markets and how badly this announcement was taken by the local business community, the international business community, and of course our sentiment here in South Africa and beyond. But what do you think happened over this weekend? On Sunday, we saw President Jacob Zuma standing up and defending once again his appointment, saying this is the right thing. He doesn't believe anything other than this should have been the way. And then that evening, he did an about-turn.
Well, I suspect that some of the senior leaders of the ANC and some of the close advisors may have just signaled to him that this is a slippery slope which he may not be able to contain. Once you start having a call for the president to step down and you start having this social media buzz, as well as some of the senior leaders of the party breaking ranks and criticizing him openly, and more importantly, the tripartite alliance partners coming and also saying that we are not pleased with this decision. ANC itself simply distancing itself by saying we are noting what the president has done, the cabinet saying we were not aware.
Yeah. Where does this leave our president? Because, again, yesterday we saw him standing up at a podium and saying, do not forget that it is local government elections next year. And yes, indeed, it is local government elections. And right now, the public are not very happy with our president. What do you think is going to be the next step in the future of President Jacob Zuma?
This might just as well be a tipping point in a cumulative sense of saying that his power and influence may begin to erode now that people have seen that he is vulnerable to pressure and he can yield. In a very short space of time, the fees must fall. He yielded. And now this particular incident of the appointment and misappointment of a minister, he has also yielded to public pressure. That in itself may begin to bring us closer to the lame duck presidency as we look towards the ANC presidency elections. Even worse, if the economy continues not to perform well, and if ANC may lose some of the municipalities, that pressure will grow.
If we have to look at how the ANC's reputation has been dented as a ruling party, and something like this, I imagine it dense voter confidence, a dense support. I mean, we saw and we still see what's happening on Twitter, and it's quite incredible to see that this is taken exceptionally seriously by the ruling party. But just in terms of image and in terms of the fact that they may very well have lost a lot of votes in some of those influential municipalities, do you think it's possible through just the events that have been happening over the last couple of days?
Without any doubt, any political organization that spends almost 80% of the time trying to explain its leader and trying to defend the leader, remember that in the last elections, much focus was on Nkandla, and ANC had very little time to speak to its own manifesto and to its own achievements and programs. And that in itself is showing that the party is quite vulnerable. This is a public relations, nightmare in many ways. Remember more recently the statement that the party comes before the country. ANC tried to manage that only for the president to return from abroad to insist that he was correct. So this can be good for the party in itself. Publicly, they may show some signs of calm, some signs of trying to make this more rational, but privately they are deeply concerned.
Do you think that before the local government elections we could see a change in leadership of South Africa?
I doubt before the local government elections, precisely because they may not be so sure, so close to elections, that if they ever attempted that, the president or some of the leaders would actually accept that. Remember, within the party, he still has some strong constituencies, and therefore it would not be a touch-and-go process.
Just one other thing before I let you go. I'm seeing quite an alarming headline here in the Business Day this morning saying that Cabinet has given the green light to nuclear procurement. According to the report here in the newspaper, they are saying that Cabinet last week Wednesday approved the nuclear procurement program, and it was that evening that our former Finance Minister Nhlahla Nene was taken out of his position. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to have a look at that, and if you'd like to just put some comment towards this announcement.
Well, the bigger issue here is that when the government talks of 1 trillion programs for infrastructure, including energy, the question of who is going to benefit from that. And the second one, if our state-owned companies are in such a fragile, sometimes limping state, are we in a position to manage those transactions and make sure that they are done accordingly and the choices are in the best interest of our national interest? If that is not the case, we are exposed in many ways where you may have any prices quoted tripling or quadrupling, as we have seen in the past.
All right, let's leave it there for this morning. Thank you for joining us here on the program. Professor Somadoda Fikeni, political analyst, talking to us from our Pretoria studios about the events that have been unfolding since last week, Wednesday. Well, if you've just worked